From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
You've been nominated several times for the Grammys, but what it's been like the last 25 years? Because music is also a fairly competitive field. It's of course the search to find your identity is there. You want to do that. You want to probably isolate yourself from the noise. But at the end of the day, the arts as a field is also a very competitive space, isn't it?
I didn't go into music to become an artist. I'd never imagined I'd make an album. It wasn't why I went into music. I went to music to sing. You know what I would do when I started singing? I became a music beggar. I heard for the very first time, I heard Pandit Jasraj sing. And I heard him, I was sitting in the...
This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV 24/7.
A very good morning. You're watching NDTV's very special rolling coverage of the Canadian elections. Canada Decides, as we're calling it. I'm Gauri Divedi, and over the course of the next 60 minutes, I'll give you the final set of details that matter in terms of who forms the government, what will be the key issues, and most importantly, whether the Liberals are outperforming their 2019 numbers when they got a government, but it was a minority government. But first up, as usual, the headlines. Mark Carney's Liberal Party is projected to form the next government. It may not be a majority government, as the numbers seem to indicate right now. Jagmeet Singh's NDP gains lead in 8 seats, even though smaller parties seem to have witnessed a collapse in terms of the seats as compared to the 2019 elections. Okay, it seems that the first results have come in, and they've projected a win for the Liberal Party. A snap election, remember, was called by Mark Carney, and this has been the election where there's been the shortest amount of period for campaigning, 37 days, and that's the mandate by law in Canada. So parties need to campaign for 37 days, and that's exactly the time that Mark Carney gave before the snap election was called out. All right, reports that are coming in right now on your screens. You can see the latest numbers that are coming in, projecting a win for Mark Carney. I want to quickly now get in a reporter joining me live on this story to give us all the very latest. I believe Yash is standing by to give us a lowdown of how things are looking right now. Yash, it's been a long evening for you. The polls closed about almost 35 minutes back for British Columbia, the last polls to close. And British Columbia, of course, is a large chunk of voters, one of the key deciding factors this time around. Talk to us about what it's looking like right now.
Well, it's the end of the road, it seems, for A, the Conservatives, and B, NDP, who has been one of the big parties when it comes to the opposition, who were also supporting the Liberals last time around when they formed the government. So it's going to be a sad end for NDP and massive gains for Bloc Quebec, who have actually gained quite a few seats and is likely going to be the second largest party in the opposition, with the Conservatives. But the key issues that everyone was facing right across Canada, from east to the west coast, were jobs, economy, and at the same time, taxes. But with the elections happening across the border in the United States and Trump getting re-elected, the elections completely changed. The tone changed completely. It was all about survival now, with the constant jibes and taunts coming in from Donald Trump, including this morning on his Truth Social. It was interesting to see how people were voting. I spoke to a lot of first-time voters who are of my age and even younger than me. All of them were of the opinion that I think it's the Liberal Party that's looking more promising now when it comes to handling the threat from across the border. And Pierre Poilievre is considered to be a slightly non-rational leader, as most people call him, and that's you don't want to put one and one together. That is Trump and Poilievre together in one room, and that's the reason why most people are voting for Liberals. It's quite similar to how elections in India. If I dare to draw a parallel here, because when it comes to the state elections, when it comes to it's similar to the provincial elections here. It's fought on issues. It's fought on issues like poverty. It's fought on issues like housing crisis, taxes, and at the same time jobs. But when it comes to the national leadership, everyone wants to elect the best possible candidate. And Mark Carney here, who is right now, as CBC is calling it, going to be the next Prime Minister for Canada, and it's going to be so interesting to see how this this banker and technocrat going to turn things around for the people of Canada, because a lot of them are quite literally suffering because of the long-term policies that have been in place with the previous government, which came from the same party. So it will be quite interesting to see the new trust that has been given to Mark Carney from the Liberal Party, who was
They've been
just
celebrating
literally
for
2 months ago.
30 minutes right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Who was
Absolutely. They've
just
been
literally,
celebrating for the last 30 minutes. And I want to quickly, in fact, as we keep playing out those numbers, also tell our viewers that there are two very interesting trends that we need to watch out for. And something that really tells the story behind the story, which is that there was these interesting set of group of voters that came together who actually started a campaign which was modest metros, because cost of living was such a big issue. Modest metros were these bunch of voters across Canada. They wanted to put the focus back on the issues, Yash, that you are talking about, even though, of course, the two people who were not on the ballot really overshadowed the elections, which is Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau. And a lot of, in fact, this election was about just that. On your screens are those, and let's take those full frame, if those visuals are coming in right now. Let's take them full frame for our viewers to see. That's the latest set of celebrations coming in. For the Liberal Party, it seems that they may be doing better than last time around as well. Those numbers are yet to come in. But in 2019, the NDP had done well, and so had some of the other smaller parties, including the one in Quebec. It may not be the case this time around, because that could be this story as far as the change in the voting pattern, particularly in Quebec. Quebec, remember, is one of the provinces where the tariff impact has been quite significant. Montreal and parts of that region have seen a significant impact on the tariff war that Donald Trump initiated against Canada, and then, of course, the backlash that has been going on since then. Canadian polls are broadly seen as the most important election in the generation, these ones that NDTV has been at the top of, one of the world's most prosperous nations, America's closest ally, trading partner. Canada has found itself in recent months unexpectedly in the crosshairs of President Trump, as we've been talking, targeted with tariffs and annexation threats. But the country has also seen many of its coveted national accomplishments in regard to the economy and social issues flip, including higher costs of living, high unemployment, rising costs of housing, and a surge in homelessness and substance abuse. Many of these problems, not just in Canada, but in other advanced economies, were, of course, exacerbated by the pandemic. I'm going to play out that report in just a bit, but I want to quickly now get in Maha Siddiqui, who's joining by to give us the very latest in terms of the elections. Many had predicted that it will be a Liberal win, given the fact that Donald Trump acted as a big savior for Mark Carney and his party. What's it looking like on ground? Maha, talk to us about the fact that it ended up becoming sovereignty as the big issue. Donald Trump was not on the ticket, but he was the one really deciding this election.
Absolutely. He was the elephant in the room, really. Donald Trump dominated this election campaign from the 20th of January, which is when the entire campaign flipped in favor of the Liberal Party. For a year almost before the last 3 months, the Conservatives were pretty sure that they would be the first past the post, be able to form a government on their own, considering the unpopularity of the Liberal government under Justin Trudeau. And come January, things changed, and how? Mark Carney is now in the pole position to be able to become the Prime Minister again. And again, I say because he was Prime Minister for 3 weeks before he called in for snap polls in Canada, leveraging that moment when he believed that the Liberal Party will be able to make a comeback due to the threats from US, both in terms of the trade threat, that is the trade war and the economic coercion, and also the annexation threat from the US, which remains the biggest issue and top of the voters' minds today when they cast their ballots. Voting has now closed even on the West Coast, and the counting in the West Coast will also, Gauri, begin now. However, it's the East Coast that clearly remains most vital as far as the counting and the number of seats is concerned in Parliament, with Ontario sending 122 members of Parliament and Quebec sending 78 members of Parliament. So these two provinces really will determine who is the next Prime Minister and which party gains the most number of seats in Parliament. So clearly the results from the East Coast are already suggesting that the Liberal Party is in the lead, which makes Mark Carney a happy man today, considering that the voters have shown their confidence in a man who is a newcomer to politics. He's a former banker, an economist, somebody who's been an advisor to Justin Trudeau, but he has been able to so cleverly pivot his campaign to project himself as someone who wasn't really associated with Justin Trudeau, even though he was. He's been able to project himself as an individual who will be the best person who can negotiate with Donald Trump. And today, that is what he is taking his gains from. Donald Trump clearly was the biggest influence in these elections. And today as well, as the Canadians started voting, Donald Trump put out a message on Truth Social, suggesting that, in fact, indicating that they should choose him as the leader of Canada, something that is clearly irking the Canadians and determining their votes.
All right. In fact, I want to quickly tell our viewers that we've got all constituency, all ground covered when it comes to Canada. And in fact, along with Maha, we have Vikram Chaudhary, who's joining us from Brampton, Yash Chawla, who's of course with us from Toronto, Nick Harper, who's with us from Washington, D.C., given the fact, as I said, well, Donald Trump was not on the big ticket, but he was pretty much the deciding factor there. And Preeti is also with us, Preeti O'Brien Martin. She's a candidate from Calgary East. Her father was from the Conservative Party. She's on the ticket from the Liberals. Talk to us, Preeti, about this election. We spoke on the eve of it, but it looks like Mr. Mark Carney is, well, he's got Lady Luck smiling on him, isn't it?
It's a fantastic result so far. He not only did he get the mandate to be prime minister, but he also won his seat. So that is fantastic. So we are being guided by the best. In fact, most of the world actually regards Mr. Carney as one of the best choices to for them. They would have been happy if Prime Minister Carney would have ran for them. So we are very, very fortunate to have him as our Canadian Prime Minister.
This is the first time that Mr. Mark Carney has put himself on a ticket. Till now, of course, he hadn't contested an election. He became the Prime Minister of Canada for a brief period. He led the party to this victory, and those final numbers are yet to come, indicating as to whether it will be a majority government. Remember, they didn't touch that mark last time around, and if we have those numbers, let's put that out to talk about the halfway mark, how the parties project what the numbers last time around. Let's put that out for our viewers joining in right now. Liberal Party is leading at 150 seats, still less than the halfway mark. But all right, let's get in Michael's view as well, and then we go back to some of the other reporters as well. Michael, in terms of this election, it's an important election because it also told the world that when it came to some of the core issues regarding these elections, sovereignty topped it. But so did some of the other factors as well, economy being one, housing being one. And when I mentioned modest metros earlier, it was because it gave an idea about how important day-to-day issues are for Canadians.
Yes, absolutely. But I think Pierre Poilievre is the unfortunate victim of Trump derangement syndrome. I think Pierre Poilievre is a victim of the backlash of Donald Trump's, at some point, bullying and his negative messaging of trying to lessen Canada and challenge the sovereignty. I think Mark Carney did an excellent job of being able to position himself supporting Canada and supporting Canadians. Well, he had the microphone, and I think that Pierre Poilievre may have missed an opportunity there. But I do believe that in the event that the Trump tariffs did not come at this time, having an election going on, and that President Trump didn't continually do that little, poke the tiger, that I think that unfortunate reality of Pierre Poilievre being maple MAGA, as one would say, and trying to wrap his cart to the Trump train to a certain extent was the detriment of his campaign. But I think that the end result is going to be, as far as the poll numbers are looking, it's probably going to be again a minority government. And where the real control here is, as you pointed out rightly so, will be the Quebecois, the Parti Quebecois, because it will not be the NDP this time who will hold the Liberals' feet to the fire. And, a vote of non-confidence is quite easy. We could be thrown back into an election in 4 to 6 months because depending on how all these economic things come down, you never know. But we'll have to see how the relationship with the U.S. and Canada takes place. But it definitely looks as if it's going to be a minority government. I mean, the polls are definitely pointing that way.
If the polls are pointing that way, it will once again become that some of the other smaller parties will become that much more significant. Something that made Justin Trudeau hamstrung sort of a prime minister, and Mr. Jagmeet Singh made demands and became extremely important in Justin Trudeau's scheme of things that probably and most certainly led to his downfall as well at the end. On your screens right now are the Prime Minister's seat, where Mark Carney is leading comfortably. Let's put in Mr. Pierre Poilievre's seat as well. He is contesting from Carleton, and then we go back to Preeti to talk about her constituency as well. Canada calls them ridings. Let's get in Pierre Poilievre's seat as well, because that's an important and interesting seat for two reasons. Carleton, that's of course Preeti. She's trailing Calgary East. And Preeti, I'm going to come back and ask you on that, given the fact that we would like to get your views on what worked, what didn't work. As far as Pierre, what I want to tell about Mr. Poilievre's seat is that Carleton is the seat which had two very important aspects. One, highest number of candidates, over 91 candidates actually are contesting at that seat, Carleton, because they wanted to, of course, make a point regarding the first past the post. So everybody is contesting against what many thought would be the next Prime Minister of Canada 3 months back. And the second important fact about that seat, Carleton, is that it also has seen the maximum amount of early voting anywhere across Canada. So that makes that seat very interesting. I'm going to come back and talk more on that when we get those latest numbers. Preeti, talk to us about what worked in Calgary East and what didn't. Your father has been a Conservative Party stalwart for decades. You chose the Liberal Party ticket. As things stand right now, the voters do not seem to be convinced.
Nope. Well, you know what? The things that worked for me was that I was doing a grassroots campaign. I had the challenges of coming into the race at the very last minute. They approved me literally 3 days before they called the election. I had, and it wasn't something that I was expecting to do. So my biggest challenge was getting my name out there without any local media coverage. I think they were fearful of my last name because what it has happened is towards this last week, more and more people have come up to me and said, "Oh my God, you were running," and I'm like, "Yes." So it was very hard for me to do a proper outreach in the short period of time. So I'm not. This is just the beginning. I guess the biggest thing for me is that everyone that has come out has asked me to stay, and so I will stay no matter what. I will take the course because it's not really a conservative riding as it is a low voter turnout riding.
Okay, and that's interesting given the fact that this time around the voting has been higher significantly than 2021. So that's very interesting and probably requires some amount of introspection as to why the voters in Calgary East didn't come out and vote. In fact, we also have Mr. Patel with us, someone who is aligned to the Conservative Party. He may not have contested, but talk to us, Mr. Patel, about, well, it looked like a case of so near yet so far. But what it looks like is that when Mr. Trump came to power and the first thing Mr. Carney did about axe the tax, he actually did axe the tax. Mr. Poilievre had no answers to take his campaign forward. Is that what you think happened, that Mr. Poilievre was stuck in a particular space, even though Canada had moved ahead, Canadian politics had moved ahead?
Well, there is lots of factors did impact into this current elections, and Mr. President Trump was one of the factor, and everybody on conservative, we were banging the band that axe the tax, axe the carbon tax. And as soon as Mr. Carney came, he says, okay, I'm going to axe the tax.
Yeah, that's the first thing he did. That's the first thing he did.
That's the first thing he did, and the slogan is gone now. Now what? How the election slogan will come out? So Pierre Poilievre had to come out with a different things like before for 9 years of Trudeau and the NDP or Jagmeet coalition he was talking about. That one was done. Now the carbon tax thing came up. That one was done. Every project or every of the slogan he had put out or every of the ideas the conservative have put out was kind of taken from liberal, or it was adopted. It says, okay, yes, you are saying this is right, so we will adopt that thing. So that's where Mr. Poilievre had to come out and talk differently to see or show the people that he is the best prime minister they will choose to fight against this US tariff, fight against this housing crisis we have it, fight against this immigration crisis we have it. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like that the message has been passed very clearly to the people.
Indeed, and TV Paul, who's a Canadian political scientist, is with me as well. And I want to put the same question to you as well, sir, that when things started, Mr. Poilievre had a fair bit of lead, but it almost fell quite significantly, and you had Mr. Carney touching early 40s, an enviable number for Justin Trudeau last year. But the fact that the messaging didn't change, the narrative didn't change, even though everything around Canadian politics changed ever since Trump came to power.
Even if his message changed, he wouldn't have won, I think, partly because a lot of young voters and left-leaning voters in support of NDP, as well as Bloc Québécois, changed their votes in a strategic way, strategic voting, because they are afraid of Poilievre's message. That's one. Secondly, the Liberals were able to project him as a junior Trump, which is unfair, I think, but unfortunately that stuck with the youth in particular. So there is an existential moment in Canada today. There is nationalism in many places, including Quebec. And they are looking at who can lead at this pivotal moment. And Carney definitely comes across as a more mature leader, less emotional, and with an economic background. So they are looking at the best option they have. I think it's a strategic voting. It wouldn't have been a big difference even if Poilievre changed his message.
All right, I think we also have Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia, former Consul General of India in Toronto, joining us to talk more about these results. Pastor Bhatia, we spoke about some of this on the eve of these elections. It looked like Mr. Carney is set to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. He was interim, he led the party, but now he's headed for a decisive mandate. It may not be a majority government. The 170 to 173 mark is still something that the Liberals are away from. But clearly, he is going to lead Canada going forward. How do you see this impacting? Let me come back to why this matters most for me, for our viewers, for NDTV, the India-Canada relationship.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be back on this platform. I think we all collectively are trying to decipher the meaning of what is now unfolding. I think if these early trends get established and the Liberal victory becomes very clear and certain, then obviously certain kind of analysis will have to be done. I think as we discussed yesterday, certainly there is a desire for change, but there is also a very strong need for leadership to deal with the new US administration. What we have not covered in detail is the fact that the economic issues are of a pressing nature for Canada. Canada is a G7 country. It's one of the most advanced economies, but estimates suggest that in the next 1 or 2 years, it probably will serve as the lowest performing economy among the developed countries. So with or without the US issue, economic situation is becoming quite difficult. And so in that context, it seems to me that the voters may be preferring to be led by a man who has a clear record of good management of economy and banking and finance in the recent decade, particularly both in Canada and the UK. So that would be the likely interpretation. But I think it's also very important to know that historically, Canada, gets to generally decide as per the wishes of where the large sections of people live in this country, which is essentially 2 states, Ontario and Quebec. So we are waiting for these constituencies to come in.
I want to quickly tell our viewers, they account for 58% of the seats for Canada, Quebec and Ontario. They're the vote-rich segments, and how they decide what they feel essentially decide what happens in Ottawa to a large extent. Before I slip into a break, I want to take a very quick view from Preeti, who's been, of course, very brave on a day when the results don't seem to be supporting her efforts. But I want to understand from you that while these are early numbers, a final majority mark is still some time away, or it looks away for the Liberal Party. How different do you think, if there's a minority government in 25, how different it will be from the one in 2019 that Justin Trudeau had led?
I think there's a bit more there's more unity in the sense that we want to actively to fight a common enemy. So I think we will be able to have a longer minority government. Traditionally, if everybody can work together, then it's actually good. But in 2019, we didn't have the same nationalism. We didn't have the ability to have our provinces open up and work together as a
repeated claims about
trade.
Annexation and wanting Canada to be the 51st state, and there were no tariff threats. That was the difference.
Right, and so unity is a real big thing that you can even see it. All the different provinces are working together, so we can work together and sell our resources to each other instead of down south. So I think it might be a little longer.
Okay, so I'm going to take a very quick break, come back on the other side, talk more about 2 important aspects and the trends that these numbers throw up. One, how will the Liberal Party now be led under Mark Carney, even though it may not be a majority government, just like in 2019? And secondly, the big picture, what will be the New Delhi-Ottawa relationship under Mark Carney? We come back and talk more. Stay with us.
You've been nominated several times for the Grammys. But what it's been like the last 25 years? Because, music is also a fairly competitive field. It's, of course, the search to find your identity is there. You want to do that. You want to probably isolate yourself from the noise. But at the end of the day, the arts as a field is also a very competitive space, isn't it?
I didn't go into music to become an artist. I'd never imagined I'd make an album. That wasn't why I went into music. I went to music to sing. You know what I would do when I started singing? I became a music beggar. I truly would. I heard, for the very first time, I heard Pandit Jasraj sing. And I heard him, I was sitting in the first row because I was a patron of this arts organization. I didn't know who he was. I never heard Hindustani music. I'd been in Brazilian, Carnatic, all of that, but never much with Hindustani. I sat in the first row, and then he started singing. And then for the next 4 hours or 3 hours that he sang, I must have cried through the entire concert of his because it was so beautiful, so magical. And in my mind, I said to myself, I want to learn from him. And, like this, but of course, most of these people take students when you're
They're
5
young
and they live with them and they travel with them and do all of this. But the universe has a way of working. And I've got to tell you a very wonderful story about Pandit Jasraj, who I wanted to learn from, but I didn't know him. And I went to a concert of his after that again. Somebody calls me up. This is a week or two after I'd had this incredible experience, and I'm telling God, or the divine, I want to learn music this way. I want to experience music where this combination of bhakti and notes come together. This is what's going through my head. I'm praying. I don't know quite how I'm doing it. A friend of mine randomly calls me up and he says, 2 weeks later, and he says, and this is so bizarre, the coincidence, that I can't call it a coincidence, I call it universal synchronicity. He says, oh, I'm a single guy, and I'm going to have Pandit Jasraj to my house for dinner tomorrow. But they have just called me up and given me a list of dietary requirements for him, which I cannot meet because I'm a single guy. I was going to order Chinese food, but he doesn't eat onions, he doesn't eat garlic, he doesn't eat anything. I don't know what to do. Do you think we can move the dinner to your house? And, because you've got cooks and stuff, so maybe you can do it. I said, of course, this is the guy I've been dying to meet. Yeah. So this is how I met Pandit Jasraj, and then I begged him to teach me. And I met all these teachers. So for me, this journey of finding music was never about performing. And when Pandit Jasraj gave me his senior most disciple to teach me, Pandit Girish Vazalwar, who passed away, I would sing for 10 hours a day. His senior most disciple to teach me.
Hello and welcome to Canada Decides, NDTV's rolling coverage of the Canadian elections. Viewers, if you're tuning in right now, elections have ended, voting has closed, early numbers have come in. British Columbia was the last to close for voting, so those numbers are going to come in just a bit. But as things stand right now, the numbers, the early trends seem to indicate that Mark Carney is set to be the next Prime Minister of Canada, but he doesn't have the majority. He is not at the halfway mark of 172. Remember, it's a 343 House. 172 is the halfway mark. Liberals didn't get there the last time around. It looks like they may not get there this time around as well, but that's just part of the story. The other part of it is that some of the smaller parties are set to see a complete collapse of their vote share. That includes the NDP led by Jagmeet Singh, the man who was at the forefront of leading Justin Trudeau's government towards completely failing the India-Canada relationship last time around, is now set to lose the National Party status. His party is set to fail to secure 12 seats in these elections, and that will mean that NDP will no longer be a national party in Canada. Jagmeet Singh, viewers, has been the person who's been at the forefront of the extremist views related to Khalistan that had a major dent on the India-Canada relationship under Justin Trudeau's tenure. Since then, the relationship has recovered, but guess what, viewers? Jagmeet Singh's fate has tanked. And on your screens are those latest updates coming in that the NDP has failed to secure 12 seats in these elections. Now, this also means that he will not be a deciding factor even if Mark Carney doesn't reach the 172 mark. Jagmeet Singh is not going to be a man deciding the fate of Mark Carney going forward. So yes, Lady Luck smiling on Mark Carney for more than one reason, but not for Jagmeet Singh. And that, of course, has huge ramifications for Canadian politics as well as the India-Canada relationship. As I said, the man who's been at the forefront of the extremist views with regard to Khalistan, extremist views with regard to how the India-Canada relationship got impacted, is now facing political oblivion. It may be political irrelevance for sure for Jagmeet Singh if his party loses National Party. Ambassador Bhatia, let me get in your thoughts on this, because this is going to have a huge impact on the future government. Mark Carney's government going forward will not be hamstrung the way Justin Trudeau's was. At least the Khalistani extremist ideologies will not be part of the New Delhi-Ottawa relationship anymore.
This is certainly significant. I think, as we all know, there are mainly 5 parties, and obviously the government will be formed either by the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party. That leaves the 3 other parties, one of which you are reporting would lose its national status. That leaves the other 2, Bloc Québécois and the Greens Party. And obviously, we will have to watch as to how they are performing and what exactly they are bringing in. If, as you are pointing out, it could be a minority Liberal government, then they will have to go and secure political support from one of these 2 or both parties, which is doable, which is feasible, but it will all depend on the post results negotiations. What comes to my mind is that this means that the strong leadership of one single party that people were hoping may not come through. It's still too early, of course, to talk about the outcome. We will have to wait until all the results are in. But on the other hand, I think this is also important that there could be the building of national consensus, at the political level, that we have 2 or 3 major national issues: economy, relations with the US, role in the world, and that will have to be then tackled in a proper manner. You mentioned about the India angle. As I mentioned
No, sir, there's no India angle. India is the primary focus. We are looking at these elections. They matter, but they matter to us for a reason, and that's why this rolling coverage is that much more important. Stay with us, sir, because I want to get in Vishal Vivek, my colleague, to really give us the details as far as the breaking news that's flashing on our screens right now. The big takeaway from these Canadian elections. Vishal, take it away. Give us the latest.
So as you can see right behind my screen, we have the results here. It shows that the Liberals have gone on to win at least 150 seats. These many number of seats are there that they are leading in. And on the other hand, Conservatives are leading in about 145 seats. And the major broadcaster of Canada, CBC, has already declared that the Liberals will go on to form government. Whether it will be minority or majority, as you said earlier, that remains to be seen. On the other hand, the third biggest party is expected to be the Bloc Québécois. That is expected to win around 24 seats as of now. And on the other hand, you see the NDP seat. The controversial leader from Canada, Jagmeet Singh, if he does not win 12 seats, if his party does not win 12 seats, which seems to be the case right now, it's leading in 10 seats as we speak, it will lose the national status, and that will be a big blow to the party, because it had been struggling in the opinion polls, and they had said that it is expected that he could be out of the national reckoning in the next polls. That seems to be the case right now. And as we all know, he is known to have pro-Khalistani views. He has made a lot of controversial statements against India. His party has hosted a lot of pro-Khalistani leaders. That has created a lot of ruckus between both the countries. The ties have been at all-time low just a few months ago. So all of that will come into the picture. But so far, you can see that Liberals have a comfortable lead already, more than 150 seats, and they are expected to form the government anytime.
I believe that Jagmeet Singh would also be asked to then leave if his party loses the national party status. That's extremely important, and that will have ramifications. It's not just about the NDP. That's not what the focus is. The focus is on the India-Canada relationship, which suffered because of Jagmeet Singh and NDP. And that, in fact, is a question I want to put forth to both Preeti as well as Ton Patel, as well as and in fact, Mr. TV Paul as well, the fact that how much will the India-Canada relationship now be impacted by these developments, and also what could be the future roadmap like? Mr. Paul, let me ask that question to you first. How do you see now the next phase of the India-Canada relationship, especially in the backdrop of someone like Jagmeet Singh, his party doing so badly, his political fate almost sealed? Does that mean now Mark Carney is going to look to repair, rebuild, and take this relationship forward?
My reading is that Mark Carney definitely is more pragmatic when it comes to India and the relationship with India. But I wouldn't rule out NDP support. They have got 10 seats or will get. Maybe necessary for Mark Carney to form a government unless he goes with the Bloc Québécois, which is even worse in Canadian terms, because the Bloc Québécois has only one agenda, that is
separatist.
They are not separatists. At this point, there is not much support for separatism in Quebec. I'm in Montreal, and it's declining because the larger threat is the United States. But Mr. Singh is likely to lose the leadership. He's supposed to get out of that role. And so we don't know who will take over NDP at some point. But the point is, Mark Carney is definitely going to have economic relationship with a large number of states in Asia Pacific as well as Europe. And India definitely pictures in that context. But I think quite a bit of diplomacy is needed on both sides, because the relationship is still suffering from a lot of that backlash from the past few last year's backlash. And the judicial process may continue. We don't know how that will produce any more revelations. Okay. But I am optimistic.
No, but that is not the point. The point is not about judicial, any of those details. The point is about the outlook, and I think that is the larger picture. I want to quickly now get Yash Chawla as well, who's with us to talk more about the latest that's unfolding, given the fact that it's now certain. It's in fact, the Canadian broadcasters, the state broadcasters, they have actually said that it's now Mark Carney who's set to be the next Prime Minister. But explain to us, Yash, right now that the party hasn't reached the halfway mark. It is not at 172. It will need the support of some of these smaller parties. Will that dilute, change the agenda? Will that make legislative business tougher? And who are the parties that Mr. Carney is likely to tap into the first?
That's an interesting question, because the government doesn't function the same way as it does, or let's just put it across as the elections don't exactly work the same way as they work in India. It will be a minority government, as what we are understanding, and you don't need to have the absolute majority of the 172 golden marker. Keep in mind that the last government that was led by Justin Trudeau was also a minority government with the support from NDP. So it's going to be interesting, because you're going to keep a lot of people happy to ensure that the House still functions. And when if you remember in February this year, when Justin Trudeau was trying to step aside, and there was this whole issue between the November of 2024 to the February of 2025, when Justin Trudeau was trying to, I wouldn't say play with fire, but at the same time, Jagmeet Singh was also threatening to pull out of the government, but was not ready to pull out of the government, and was waiting for some provincial elections to take place. And then, and eventually they never pulled out of the government. So it's going to be a topsy-turvy ride for this minority government if it happens. And who knows when the next elections will be called again, because it's going to be an uphill climb for the Liberal Party, keeping in mind what everyone thinks of the damage which was already being done in the last 4 odd years, specifically with the policies, with the immigration, as well as the housing crisis. It's going to be a very difficult and an uphill climb for the Liberal Party. And the next 6 months after the election, after the swearing in of Mark Carney, are going to be extremely crucial for not just Canada, but for also the political relations from with United States across the border, and also with major nations like India, China, Mexico, because we come in the same continent as Mexico. That will be very crucial.
Indeed, that will be very crucial, and I think that is when the tough task of fixing Canada's relations, particularly with America, the most important trading partner, will take center stage. And after the rough and tumble of electoral politics, the very first for Mark Carney at the age of 60, he will then look to take care of probably the only G7 economy which is set to enter a recession, and that I think is very important. But Yash, I want to ask you one more thing, and this is details that are just coming in right now, which is downtown Toronto, a constituency that the Liberals lost last time. They've regained this time around, and many believe that really tells the mood of the nation, that how things swung back for the Liberal Party.
Well, it's rightfully called the bastion of the Liberals. It's the home turf, as they call it. Interestingly, just a few months back, there were the provincial elections, and Doug Ford, who is a conservative, won the elections, and many thought that that would be the the early picture that everyone was painting, that it will be conservatives at this time who will be leading the elections and winning the elections, but as in, you threw the elephant in the room, and that elephant, by the way, was Donald Trump. Uh, I mean, that really swung the favor in front of for the Liberals. But as you mentioned, the stronghold of Liberals, which is the downtown, it is a tough place to be right now, to be honest, because it has a housing crisis which is looming in right now. The condo market, the condominium market, as we call it, the housing market in Toronto has crashed. There are no new sales happening. Realtors are looking at a 40% nosedive when it comes to the number of sales that are happening month on month. So it's going to be a tough situation, not just for the realtors or for the people living there, but also for all the parties.
Absolutely.
Whatever happens from now on, it's going to be an uphill climb for Mark Carney and the Liberals.
And yes, stay with me, which is why the Liberal fortress coming back to Carney's camp was so important, and I wanted to address that. But there are numbers are changing. The election is still not over. Remember, it's never over till it's all over. And let's put those numbers out for our viewers to see. It looks like the Conservatives have climbed up a little, and it may end up being a neck-and-neck fight. On your screens, the Liberals at 157, the Conservatives at 148. Of course, the number is still, there is a bit of a gap between the two, but remember, neither of them have reached the 172 mark. But as Yash was explaining, it doesn't work the way it works in India, which is that parties or a coalition needs to get that number to be able to govern, as it happened in Justin Trudeau's case last time around. We saw that. Let's get in Michael to talk more about this in terms of the fact that this is a race that is still not over. How do you read it? Some have already declared the election in favor of Mr. Mark Carney, but it seems like the Conservative Party is making small but important gains.
If you look at the numbers, there's the amount of polls that have just turned in is 342 of 343 available seats. Currently, what's being reported here is 155 for the Liberals and 151 for the Conservatives. That is a 4-vote difference. That means the importance of the Bloc de Québécois with their 22 seats, 22 or 25 seats, could literally, through a vote of non-confidence, tumble the government. So not only did the Liberals not get a majority, we're in a very, very tight race, and there's still seats that could be contested. The one thing that does look like it's evident is that the NDP did not, as you well reported, did not get 12 seats, but this is a horse race with 2 or 3 seats between the Liberals and the Conservatives as it's sitting here right now. So I'm going to tell you the importance of the Bloc de Québécois, and the Bloc de Québécois was more aligned with the Conservatives than they were the Liberals. So, I mean, this is going to be a tumultuous little finish, and anybody who's going to contest whether they lost or won their riding could change this whole demographic. Very, very interesting. Wow.
Okay. That's a very important fact that you mentioned, that it seems that it is going Mr. Carney's way. But I want to understand, and you know, this is something that even the viewers would like to understand, that how much does legislative work get impacted with a government not reaching the halfway mark? And that's a question I throw open to the entire panel. Mr. Paul, I want to start with you, and then I get in Ambassador Bhatia as well, because this is important to understand. That does it impact the Prime Minister's legislative business, restricts his elbow room to be able to take big reforms that the Canadian economy needs right now? You're on mute, sir.
Go for the big kill if they are part of this coalition. They definitely will bargain the maximum they can get. But beyond that, I think the big projects, the East-West pipeline and a number of energy projects, all will require support from Bloc Québécois. And very hard to know where they stand on some of that, especially if that affects Quebec. So it is going to be an uncertain future for Canada. Not the capacity to fight with Donald Trump will not increase unless, of course, there is a national consensus, which is not yet there on how to deal with him on some of these issues. But I think it is a challenge. We all wish it was a majority government, whoever one party would have been able to run it, but it doesn't look like the electorate wants that this time.
I mean, there in terms of how much does a hung government get impacted in terms of legislative business?
Well, I think it's a very significant factor. Legislative agenda is an essential tool for the government to ensure marching forward. And if you don't have a majority, it is going to be a handicap. But more importantly, at the political plane, it's very clear that Canada is facing, by its own admission, an existentialist crisis, not just vis-a-vis the US, as I said, but on the economic plane, and in fact, in kind of political moral terms as well.
Yes.
So if at that stage you do not have a strong government, a strong leadership, you will have to develop national consensus on every major issue, one step at a time. So the challenge is going to become bigger.
Okay, indeed. And you know, on your screens are those latest numbers, which is, let's put that numbers out, because that tells you how close this may actually go down to. The Conservatives, these numbers suggest, is at 151, and the Liberal Party is at 154. BQ could be the deciding factor. That's the party that operates in the French-speaking part of Canada, the Quebec region, that has, of course, Montreal and some of the other cities. They are deeply impacted by the trade tariffs that have been imposed by Donald Trump. The lumber business, those are the sectors that get impacted in Quebec, and BQ will be the deciding factor. How much will that impact the policies and the politics of the next government and the next Prime Minister remains to be seen. But who will be the next Prime Minister? Look at these numbers, 154, 151. Can it go the either way, or is it a done deal right now? It's too close to now say that, but it's important to note that out of the 343 seats, 342 have been called. Only one seat is left. It may be a hung government, but it most certainly is looking like it's going in Mark Carney's way. If we have those final seats of the two Prime Ministers in reckoning, the two candidates, the two primary candidates, Mark Carney, who's won his maiden election from yeah, there you can see the Nepean seat, he's leading, and Mr. Pierre Poilievre, if he can have his seat as well. He was trailing the last time I checked, but it's also because, as I said, this was a seat that had 91 candidates. The ballot paper only going into 3 long pages. But anyhow, that's how the numbers look right now. If we have some live shots coming in latest visuals of the Liberal Party camp celebrating, and they have every reason to celebrate. But I want to now bring focus to the one aspect which I think is extremely important, the Indo-Canadian group in as a demography, as a group that is in Canadian politics, how much they matter, how significant is that? And, Michael, let me ask that to you. In terms of the Indo-Canadian group, they've been at the forefront of the previous couple of elections, this time around as well. How do you see them impacting politics and policy making of Canada going forward?
Absolutely. I mean, the city of Brampton, under the leadership of Mayor Patrick Brown, has always been a very interesting community. I mean, it is a majority South Asian, and it votes generally liberal, but they do change to conservatives. They back the party that puts them in the best light. Indo-Canadians are hardworking people. Indo-Canadians bring business and create business. They're an absolute important fabric of our society and of the industriousness of those people who have come to this country and want to be Canadian and work with Canadians, as well as those who are born Canadians. So I think not only culturally but work ethic wise. I think the one interesting aspect here is that one of the policies that was talked about was the student visas.
Indeed.
There were some bad actors that tainted a certain group of student attendees in Canada.
Yes.
And I think that's something that has to be addressed so it doesn't become a country issue. But
remains a specific issue.
Are very much in politics.
Absolutely.
And are very, very important contributors.
And that you've raised an important point. I want to get in, Sai, Vikas, on this to talk more about the student issue, the student visa issue. And of course, Canada as an important destination for Indians. You want to talk to us about sir, the fact that, some of the politics that really shaped policies related to immigration the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months. How do you see the future outlook?
Hi, good evening to everyone. Good evening to the panel. It's going down to the wire, probably to the last ball, as they say in cricket. We'll see how that shapes out. Interesting comments from the panel, but let me address your question. I think there are two facets to it. I think there's one economic facet, if I may, how Canadian economic interest and foreign policy can be aligned to kind of fuel the growth. In the last few years, what we have seen is relationships with large superpower economies like India and China both have kind of soared. So the foreign policy was not handled deftly, if I may say, and with the tariff threats and Canada facing an existential crisis, I think it needs to find a space in foreign policy to accommodate win-win interest with both India and such emerging economies. So I feel the new government will look at it
Indian
differently.
students looking at, Vikas, Indian students looking at
student
Canada as a destination has been at a 4-year low. There's been over a 25% dip in the number of Indian students who want to go to Canada. A lot of that is because of the local domestic issues. Do you see some of them being addressed now and it becoming an important and attractive destination for students?
Absolutely. I was coming to it. So the second piece of it is that the confidence in Canada has been eroded. Like Michael said, there have been some bad actors, but that being said, generally the policy making has been quite erratic. There's been no method in madness. The immigration policy kept changing on a frequent basis, and that has impacted the confidence of Canada, especially in the South Asian market. So that needs to be restored. So there has to be a semblance of policy that needs to come in.
Yes.
And I believe that whoever comes into power now would give a better direction to the immigration policy, because the cornerstone of Canada's story over several decades has been immigration. And students do bring in a lot of multicultural fabric to it. They are hardworking people.
Okay.
They come in and settle and build. a career in Canada.
Right.
Thank you.
I want to get a quick word from Yash before we wrap things up here. Yes, Yash, you had a point to make.
Well, I was just listening to the conversation about how students bring in this multicultural fabric to the country and how hardworking they are. Immigration, along with the student visa policy, is directly related, and in some form, it materializes into the when students come in, they would love to stay back, love to get involved more with the country and get jobs, and then eventually get permanent residency and then citizenship, which is always the case for other people as well. Like this is the same
Yes.
route for everyone as well. But with the way things have been running right now, colleges
Yes.
are being forced to shut down a lot of courses. A lot of campuses are deserted now, and this entire process
Yes.
is leaving a lot of students feeling cheated that this image, this dream of Canada, that they
Yes.
would land up on the shores and get work hard and show their mettle and prove their worth and get residency is unfortunately coming to an end.
Absolutely. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining me on this special edition, Canada Decides. And as we wrap things up, well, you just saw the latest details coming in of Pierre Poilievre trailing in his own seat, a man who was set to be the Prime Minister just 3 months back. And that's just how much the Canadian elections have changed. Thank you so much for watching this very special broadcast.
You've been nominated several times for the Grammys, but what it's been like the last 25 years? Because, music is also a fairly competitive field. It's, of course, the search to find your identity is there. You want to do that. You want to probably isolate yourself from the noise. But at the end of the day, the arts as a field is also a very competitive space, isn't it?
I didn't go into music to become an artist. I'd never imagined I'd make an album. It wasn't why I went into music. I went to music to sing. You know what I would do when I started singing? I became a music beggar. I truly would. I heard, for the very first time, I heard Pandit Jasraj sing. And I heard him, I was sitting in the first row because I was a patron of this arts organization. I didn't know who he was. I never heard Hindustani music.
Star storms into record books. Vaibhav Suryavanshi is the youngest centurion in a T20.
No, Michael Goff's going to get the arms aloft, I reckon. Fifth.
Put everything into that, the youngster.
Breaking news coming in at the moment, and this is in regard to Mallikarjun Kharge. They're seeking a special parliamentary session, asking the Prime Minister, writing to the Prime Minister, talking about a collective resolve, and that is what needs to be demonstrated. A session will, of course, demonstrate that resolve. Radhika, and this really comes on the heels of the Congress leader yesterday just criticizing the Prime Minister for being absent from that all-party meeting.
That's right. In fact, as you
Mallikarjun Kharge had criticized. Yes, go ahead, Sunil.
Well, as you rightly pointed out, Mr. Kharge, and I think what we'll see is a series of other letters from opposition leaders to the Prime Minister asking for a special session so that the political voice, just like they did in Jammu and Kashmir, same way reflects the will of the people, which has really affected India, and that we all speak in one voice, cutting across party lines, to not only condemn the terrorist incident and to support the government, but to really take things forward in terms of how we should internationally isolate Pakistan, continue to, hunt the perpetrators of this heinous crime and bring them to justice, and support the government in whatever measure, be it diplomatic, be it military, be it in any other step that should be required. Of course, there will be questions that will come up in that parliament session about the lack of security or the intelligence failure, but be that as it may, I think India as a voice needs to, speak in a one voice. This is the worst after 26/11 in 2008. So it's in that backdrop we'll have to wait and see whether the government does agree for an to a session of parliament, a special session to discuss this entire issue.
Right. In fact, Sunil, as far as the collective resolve is concerned, we've been seeing parties really standing by the government, especially over the last few days after that meeting took place, where the parties, in fact, Rahul Gandhi himself saying that he stands by all the actions as far as the center is concerned. But yesterday, perhaps after that all-party meeting was held, Mallikarjun Kharge there criticizing the government over his absence. But certainly what is required is collective resolve, but also a sense of unity is something that, has to be projected, which seems to be the need of the hour. But there seems to be, while there is consensus on some aspects, there, isn't, a clear consensus at other times.
So I get your point, and definitely what you are saying is definitely there has not been, uniformity in thought and in process from both political parties. For example, Mr. Kharge, as well as what Mr. Rahul Gandhi said at the internal all-party meeting, and Mr. Kharge then reflecting it at Bangalore, saying that why was the Prime Minister not absent, reiterating it again in Jaipur. Rahul Gandhi asking questions on the security as well as intelligence failure. But this after the Home Ministry itself made a presentation. So it's in that backdrop that there will definitely be questions. There will be not complete conformity, but I think as they publicly have said, and Rahul Gandhi said immediately after the all-party meeting, even the Congress Working Committee's resolution, very categorically giving its fullest support to get justice for those families and the people who lost their lives, and that India speaks in one voice. The Congress, of course, as you rightly said, has also attacked the BJP for what it believes is, and there have been even cases against its social media. So, the accounts and everything else about how they're trying to politicize and not talk about it. But definitely the Congress itself understands that there have been a lot of loud mouths, be it the Chief Minister, Mr. Siddaramaiah, or for that matter, Mani Shankar Iyer, Shashi Tharoor to a certain extent, and others. And it's in that context that we have seen, the Congress party asking them only to allow authorized spokespersons, and the CWC has spoken in one voice on this aspect.
All right. Thank you for those details, Sunil. A special parliament session is something that the Congress chief has sought, says need collective will, and session will demonstrate resolve, is the opinion of the Congress party. A week after the brutal terror attack in Pahalgam, where 26 innocent lives were lost, Divya security forces continue a massive manhunt for perpetrators. Evidence, of course, pointing clearly to Pakistani involvement, with multiple ceasefire violations reported along the border.
That's right. We're talking about multiple violations for the fifth consecutive day, line of control. This is now in the Akhnur district. Tensions have escalated between India and Pakistan, with political voices like Umar Abdullah calling this a watershed moment as far as J&K is concerned. But it's like you mentioned, it's been a week, and of course the manhunt continues. And to know more on this, we have Nazir joining us from Srinagar. Nazir, of course, in regard to it's been a week, and the terrorists are still at large, and of course the manhunt continues, and at the same time there are ceasefire violations from the Pakistani side that have been reported. And now, yesterday was the first time that there was a violation as far as the Poonch district is concerned, and now it's coming in from the Akhnur district. This is the area where the violation has now been reported from.
Well, I'm in Pahalgam, and this place is trying to come to terms with the loss after a horrible terror attack a week ago. Pahalgam is clearly not the same place. A week ago, it was bustling with activities. Thousands of tourists were here, but today, not much can be seen. Let me pan the camera and show you. Not even many shops are yet open, though they open a bit late. And you can see security, clearly CRPF deployed here in this marketplace. A week ago, it was not easy even for the traffic and the traffic police to regulate traffic on this road. But today, not many vehicles are actually moving on this road. Despite markets may be open, but that sentiment is still missing, and this place is trying to come to terms with the laws. A major operation is supposed to be underway in the forests here of Pahalgam, where the terrorists have disappeared in these thick alpine forests, and for last 1 week, thousands of the troops, paramilitary force and police have launched the operation, but it appears so far they are no way closer to tracking them down. That is something everybody has been waiting for, because it's not just tracking them down because they're involved in this heinous crime and killing of innocent people, 26 killings, massacre of people, but also
thank you for getting us those details. Of course, 26 innocent lives lost, and of course, reviving the economy of Kashmir is something that will take time. Let's also get you this report filed by our colleague Shiv Varur.
Today is 1 week since the Pahalgam massacre, and let's take a look at everything that's happened in the last 1 week and everything that hasn't happened in the last 1 week. The investigation, of course, is continuing. Forensic evidence has been collected. Fresh videos depicting the gunfire from the terrorists has emerged on the 6th day. And the hunt for those terrorists is obviously still on. What hasn't happened is that the terrorists haven't been caught, and no major military action has yet been taken, even though there continues to be an overwhelming sense of anticipation that India will be taking some kind of a big move. What has happened is, at the very, very local level, a dozen homes of different terrorists in different parts of Jammu and Kashmir, and we visited them, have been destroyed by the local police. Patrolling and security has been beefed up in different parts of J&K. There is a visible depletion in tourism, obviously, as a result of what happened 1 week ago. But again, politically speaking, the air between India and Pakistan has escalated into what appears to be some kind of a big action that is coming. Here in Jammu and Kashmir, 1 week later, when we visited Pahalgam a couple of days ago, it seemed that people had started to come back in some measure, but there is a great deal of anxiety, and there is no ignoring that. The numbers have definitely taken a hit. Tourism data, which will come out maybe a couple of weeks from now, will show that damage has definitely been done, and it's going to take a long time for it to recover. But the important point is justice for the victims, for the innocent tourists who were there in the Baisaran Valley, which we visited as well. So far, there's been no visible sense of justice for them, either in terms of the terrorists who were there, who attacked them, or their handlers across the border in Pakistan. So this 1 week later is still very much a story in motion.
Right. Thank you so much for getting us those details. Stay with us. Of course, this is in regard to India slamming the, Pakistan when it comes to the United Nations. There, of course, those comments that were made by the Defence Minister of Pakistan, Khwaja Asif, admitting and confessing the country's history of supporting, training and also funding terrorists and their organizations. Of course, he had gone on to say that we've been doing this dirty work for the United States for the past 3 decades, including the West and the UK. Those are the comments that were made, and those are the comments that were slammed by Yojana Patel, Radhika.
That's right. In fact, the ambassador, Yojana Patel, India's deputy permanent representative at the UN, also saying this confession was not surprising and it exposed Pakistan as a rogue state that has been fueling global terrorism. Let's listen in to what she said.
It is unfortunate that one particular delegation has chosen to misuse and undermine this forum to indulge in propaganda and make baseless allegations against India. The whole world has heard Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif admitting and confessing Pakistan's history of supporting, training and funding terrorist organizations in a recent television interview. This open confession surprises no one and exposes Pakistan as a rogue state fueling global terrorism and destabilizing the region. The world can no longer turn a blind eye.
I think one should call out the enormous irony and perhaps the futility at large of the United Nations that a country like Pakistan, widely considered the global fountainhead of terror, gets to speak and has a say at a United Nations launch of something called the Victims of Terror Alliance Network. That tells you pretty much everything about how ineffective these global forums have been when it comes to India, Pakistan. But Yojana Patel, India's number 2 diplomat in the United Nations, has given it back in full measure to the Pakistan side. This kind of to and fro at the United Nations is not uncommon, but in this particular case, I think the emotions have been running especially high after Pahalgam. The Defense Minister of Pakistan, Khwaja Asif, has helped India's case by giving an interview to Sky News where he spoke to Yalda Hakim quite honestly about Pakistan's support for some of these extremist groups, quote unquote, and therefore. India, quite frankly, at the United Nations or elsewhere, has never needed grist, has never needed data against Pakistan. We've got more than enough dossiers which are not vague by any nature. They are specific when whether it is 2611, whether it is Pathankot, whether it is going to be Pahalgam. Once those reports are finalized, India has more than enough information about Pakistan. But at the United Nations, at forums like this, it is protocol, it is standard operating procedure to continue to hammer them, label them as a rogue state, and hopefully ensure this time that the Pahalgam massacre, where innocent tourists were targeted by Pakistani terrorists, obviously with local help here in Kashmir, will pay some kind of a price.
In fact, Pakistan's Defense Minister Khwaja Mohammad Asif has made a big statement. He said Pakistan has reinforced its forces because India's intrusion, in fact, India's military action is something which is imminent now.
That's right, Radhika. He went on to say Pakistan's military had briefed the government on the possibility of an attack by India and that Pakistan is on high alert, that it would only use its arsenal of nuclear weapons if there is a direct threat to our existence. That is what is being said, that Pakistan is now ready for an attack because they feel that that is imminent as far as the Indian side is concerned, which is why they have regrouped their forces. Now, let's just get you more news, and this is in regard to the Karnataka High Court that has quashed an FIR registered against the Infosys co-founder Chris Gopalakrishnan and others under the Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Prevention of Atrocities Act 1989 and termed the complaint an abuse of the process of law and granted liberty to initiate criminal contempt proceedings against the complainant, Radhika.
That's right. The court observing that the complaint was an attempt to harass the petitioners. The FIR was based on a private complaint filed by a former faculty member of IISc who was terminated in 2014 following an internal inquiry into sexual harassment allegations. To know more on this, we're joined by Deepak. Deepak, take us through the details of the case. We believe the court there, the High Court there, has quashed this FIR registered against Chris Gopalakrishnan. Take us through the nature of the complaint and what exactly transpired.
Well, as far as Mr. Chris Gopalakrishnan is concerned, he was a part of the governing council of the IISc when this termination, and of course at the end of it, of course he was asked to leave IISc as well. This is a person who was, there were allegations that he was facing of sexual harassment, misappropriation of funds as well. This was challenged in 2015 in the Karnataka High Court, but it didn't fare well. There's eventually a settlement. He had also agreed that he will not further proceed with any sort of charges. But now, after that, he has again filed multiple complaints. FIRs were registered, and this is the latest one that has been quashed, where the court has said that this is an abuse of the process of law. Not just that, the court has also observed that this is an attempt to harass the petitioners as well. And more importantly, they've now allowed, for contempt proceedings to be initiated against this complainant as well, who at that point in time alleged that there was a caste-based bias against him. The court hasn't found any evidence in this regard, so it looks like there is major relief coming the way of Mr. Chris Gopalakrishnan.
All right. Thank you, Deepak, for getting us all of those details. Let's shift our focus to some breaking update. This is in connection to Mehul Choksi. In fact, no bail has been granted for Mehul Choksi, who is wanted in connection with the PNB scam. Choksi will continue to stay in jail. So that's right. The latest update from a court in Belgium.
That's right. Actually, that hearing has now been postponed. He will continue to stay in jail. There's going to be no bail for him at the moment. And this is because the bail hearing has been postponed. This is in regard to the legality of the Indian warrant and appeal hearing, which will now take place only after the 8th of May. So the hearing which is coming up today as far as bail plea is concerned, Radhika, that has now been postponed till after the 8th of May. They will be setting a date for the hearing concerning his extradition. He will have to continue to stay in jail for now. So the hearing, the bail plea hearing that we've been speaking about, in fact, since morning, that that was coming up in the Belgium court today, that has been postponed. We don't know the grounds on which this has been postponed. We will, of course, what we do know is this will only take place now after the 8th of May. And it is the legality as far as the Indian warrant is concerned that is going to be questioned. And of course, the Indian side, of course, wanting his earliest extradition and, would have also perhaps, opposed that bail plea. But of course, now he will have to continue to stay in jail.
All right, let's move on to now some updates from Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin inducted DMK's Mano Thangaraj as Milk and Dairy Development Minister. This is a portfolio he had held earlier. This is after multiple churns that have happened as far as the cabinet in Tamil Nadu is concerned, which led to also resignation of some of its earlier ministers.
You're talking about Senthil Balaji, and of course, who has been facing money laundering allegations, and Pon Mundi, who made explicit comments with, casteist overtones, therefore put in their papers. Of course, our colleague Sam Daniel has spoken with the new minister, who's spoken about those changes that have been brought about in the government. Let's just listen in to what he has to say.
Joining us now, the newly inducted Milk and Dairy Development Minister, Mr. Mano Thangaraj. So thank you very much for your time. Congratulations. What's going to be your focus now? You're back in the same portfolio now?
Yes. Actually, this is a very good opportunity our Honorable CM has given to me, putting trust on me that I'll be able to run the thing in a better way. And really, I extend my thanks to him. First of all,
it's a tricky situation. On the one hand, you should give better pricing for farmers. On the other hand, you should keep the price under control for consumers. How do you balance it?
The biggest challenge of Avin is this, because the farmers entirely depend on the primary milk producer cooperative societies. So we have to sustain the farmer, we have to sustain the cooperative societies, as well as we have to sell this in a very reasonable price. Because, as it is a government thing, people expect that they should get at a reasonable price. And of course, Avin is doing that for the last few decades. That's a very good thing in the part of Avin. And because of Avin only, the farmers are getting a fair price, as well as the consumers are also getting milk in a very, very reasonable price. And to balance it is a real risk, and it's a very big task. And fortunately, because of the support of the government, because of the infrastructures we have, we will be able to do it.
How do you look at the entry of actor Vijay in Tamil Nadu now? Many say he could also draw the support of minorities now, which has been the stronghold of the DMK so far.
Sir, these are all mere speculations. But I don't find any strategy or a proper action plan with him. You cannot simply mesmerize people. That's what I believe in.
He is a star with a cult following, making his political plunge at the peak of his acting career.
I strongly believe that only this star value or the money things alone will be able to gain votes. We have a proper ideology, we have proper organization structure, we have a charismatic leader, and we have a lot of second level persons to lead the campaign. So all these things are assets of DMK. So if somebody undermines this thing and thinks that they can have a easy cakewalk, that's not going to happen.
The resignation of Mr. Senthil Balaji under corruption allegations and the resignation of Mr. Pon Mundi following his comments, do you think these are going to be a challenge for the DMK?
Now I think what the feedback I get from people are fed up with the ED and IT. So they are making IT and ED as a tool to achieve their political gain.
The court has asked him to step down.
Yes, this is entirely a judicial process. So he has obliged.
Will these developments dent prospects of DMK in the elections?
No, I don't think so, because as the court findings, he has obliged. So matter is now settled. When, as far as Ponmudi's matter is concerned, he has been taken away from the party. His political post also has been taken. So the Honorable CM has done his maximum. So he has uttered something, and people feel that it has wounded the religious sentiments of some people, and it has undermined the women. So that also the Honorable CM has delivered his best. So I don't think it will not be affecting the prospects of DMK.
Thank you so much for your time. That was Mr. Manoj Thangaraj, the newly inducted Milk and Dairy Development Minister, talking to us. In Chennai with Suresh, Sam Daniel, Find It TV.
Shifting focus to Mumbai now, fire has erupted in Bandra at an electronics goods showroom. In fact, this fire erupted at about 4 a.m. today. No injuries, no casualties. However, there's been a large-scale destruction of the property that has taken place. As a result, firefighting operations are underway, and we believe that fire has spread to upper floors, although it broke out in the basement.
That's right. You're talking about a Croma showroom. This is, like you mentioned, an electronics showroom in Bandra. And fortunately, up until now, there have been no injuries that have been reported. The fire took place at about 4:11 in the morning and was declared a level 3 fire by the Mumbai Fire Brigade by around 4:45 this morning. Anuj joining us to get us more on this. Anuj, take us through the location of this showroom. Was it inside a mall, or was it a standalone store?
No, it's inside a mall, and this, in fact, is a very busy street. Although, it was early morning when the fire broke out, so there were not a lot of people around. And as a result of that, we've been told that there is no injury, that has been reported as of yet. But as you can see, that this is a very busy street, Lincoln Road. It's a very high-end area of Mumbai city. There are multiple malls in this entire vicinity, and this is one of them. As you can see on your screen right now, the flames are still going up, stating that, the source of fire is still on. The fire brigade team has been at the job here for the last 5 hours, and they've been trying. You can see there are multiple fire brigade vehicles which are present here, more than 15 in fact now, because as you said that it was decided that it was a level 3 fire a while back, but most recent update is that it has been upgraded to a level 4 fire, which has increased the number of personnel who are here at work. What we are seeing is that a lot of those people, a lot of movement has started, beneath the mall, right outside the mall, because a lot of these shop owners, they're coming here and they're also stating that ever since the fire began, that is close to 3:30 or 4, 3:30 to 4, that is when the fire brigade team started to come, yet there was not a quick response that was given to them. We also talked to Zishan Siddiqui a while back, and even he highlighted the same point on how, although the number of personnel in this entire area was very high, but then they weren't able to act as promptly as they should have in this particular scenario. But the update as of now is that it's been 5 hours since the fire has broken out. The number of teams, the number of vehicles is still increasing here on an hourly basis, but the flames are still up, and it is yet to know, the authorities are yet to know what exactly is the reason for this fire to break out.
Right, thank you so much, Anuj, for getting us those details. Let's just get you the latest when it comes to the elections, Radhika, that have taken place in Canada. And of course, the Liberals are a clear majority winner at the moment. They have won. But it seems like a hung government there, because, of course, the Liberals projected to win. But with Mark Carney, they're set to return as the Prime Minister. Do remember that he'd taken charge in order to replace Justin Trudeau just a few weeks ago in the month of March. And the Liberals are leading in over 150 seats. But it was very disappointing to see Pierre Poilievre, who was set to win these elections, but has, now all set to lose to Mark Carney and the Liberals. Radhika.
Right, let's go straight across to Vishal, who's joining us on this story. Vishal, of course, Liberals all set to win. Of course, there has been a sort of a transformation ever since Trump took over. We also believe that pro-Khalistani Leaders Party has also collapsed. But take us through the trend that you're seeing. What are some of the issues that really drove this election? And, take us through the primary data that has come so far.
Well, Liberals seem to be cruising quite comfortably as we speak. What I have right behind me is a map that shows the distribution of seats. So far, Liberals seem to be leading in 161 seats, and the Conservatives have 148 seats as their lead. And the third largest party seems to be Bloc Québécois, which has a lead in 23 seats. What's interesting to see is that NDP, which is the party of Jagmeet Singh, a pro-Khalistani leader, seems to be leading in 10 seats. It needs 12 seats to be in the national reckoning, otherwise it will cease to be a national party. And many projections suggest that it will only win one seat, that would be of Quebec. So it will be a huge blow to this party. We all know that Jagmeet Singh is known for his pro-Khalistani views, has hosted many pro-Khalistani events, he's been seen with many pro-Khalistani leaders, and that has sort of been one of the primary factors into driving India-Canada relations to an all-time low. So that will also come into the picture when the final results are out. So far, these are some trends that we have to keep an eye on, but it does seem that this party, NDP, could be out of the national reckoning. On the other hand, Liberals seem to be making a big comeback. They had their Prime Minister in Mark Carney, but a lot of polls had suggested that they won't be winning the elections, but in came Donald Trump and he sort of upended the whole US-Canada relationship, and this whole opinion polls, they shifted in favor of Liberals, and they seem to be cruising on that. They seem to be winning it quite comfortably, but projections do seem to suggest that it will be a hung parliament, and the third largest party, BQ, could be the kingmaker, and that we will have to keep an eye on this third party, which side it chooses. But most likely it will go with Liberals, so that will be something we'll need to look at. So far, it needs to be comfortable cruising for the Liberals.
Thank you so much for getting us all those details, breaking it down for us. Of course, all eyes on that big announcement. With that, we're slipping into a very short break. Back with a whole lot more on the other side.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola, India's leading AI smartphone brand.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain with me.
Welcome back. Let's get you 100 days of Donald Trump's 2.0 administration that will be completed tomorrow on Wednesday. Of course, the global economy is reeling. We're talking about the stock markets being the lowest since Nixon. We're also talking about the yo-yo tariffs to geopolitical curveballs, Radhika. And of course, his approval ratings, the lowest that we've seen as far as US president is concerned in the last 70 years.
That's right. President Trump's second term has turned the trade world on its head. Is this part of the deal or just chaos? Let's get you this report.
April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world.
100 days and the trade winds have shifted into a perfect storm. With a pen and a punchline, President Donald Trump has turned the rule book inside out. From the checkout counter to Wall Street, the world is feeling the whiplash. Tariffs slapped, paused, and slapped again, then threatened to be lifted, have kept global markets dancing on eggshells. The result? Billionaires bleeding millions, consumer sentiment nosediving to its lowest in years, and the IMF, well, trimming global growth projections. Corporate America is hedging its bets, guidance slashed, investment shelved, and the global supply chain jammed in reverse. On China, it's a ping-pong match of talks and denials. Trump says one thing, Beijing says another, and the world holds its breath. Deals with India, Japan, and Korea still in the talking shop, and geopolitical dreams from buying Greenland to annexing Canada are stirring more anxiety than applause. Trump 2.0 may care about markets, but the presidency is writing a different manual. Less about trade and more about terrain. The train is moving fast, and the question is, who's driving and where's it going? Arjun Samar Mahendran for NDTV World.
And to know more about President Donald Trump's second term and his first 100 days of administration and all the chaos surrounding it, we are joined by Gauri Dwivedi. Gauri, over to you.
Right, Gauri, of course, take us through the hits and misses of the first 100 days, and what is it that, we really need to look out for in terms of the promises that were made, and of course, Donald Trump there going on talking about how he'll put an end to the war between Ukraine and Russia in just a phone call. So all that and a whole lot more that we were expecting in the first 100 days, what really have we seen? Take us through all of that.
Divya, a lot really did get done as far as the 100 days of the Trump administration is concerned, which is why we are continuing this campaign of 100 hours. As far as his biggest hits, well, the one big hit that one must give credit for Donald Trump to is the fact that he did start the conversation regarding the Russia-Ukraine war. The war had been in almost a frozen state where nobody was talking. So at least he started those communication lines. That's a big hit for Trump. He hasn't been able to end the war in 24 hours, as he's been saying, is the big miss. The other aspect, of course, is the fact that he brought about greater clarity with regard to the immigration issue. Border crossings are now at a record low, but so are his ratings, because people say that he's been now completely focused on immigration, on trade, and that is having an impact on their daily lives, economies of people and their households. And in fact, trade policy, the way it rattled global markets, investors, is something that is yet to be decided whether it's a hit or a miss. But one thing is for certain, it has really impacted global trade, as we know, and which is why it's important to get an important voice to talk more about global trade, how Donald Trump's tariffs impacted economies and what lies ahead. Joining us on the broadcast is former Trade Minister of Australia, Stephen Theobo, who will be giving us a detailed lowdown of the Trump tariffs, the trade tensions it brought about, and what lies ahead. And Mr. Stephen, let me start by asking you just that the trade tensions that one sees right now have been brought about by, to a large extent, due to the Trump tariffs. Do you see these continuing going forward, or what do you think is the outlook for global trade, given the fact that trade is so central to Trump administration and their policies?
There's no doubt that trade is becoming more difficult. We are seeing globally a shift towards more protectionism, a shift to reorient a lot of the supply chains, terms such as friendshoring, reshoring being used repeatedly. The fundamental requirement that a lot of countries are going to have to navigate over the coming years is to determine whether or not they believe they can pursue their best economic goals by focusing on liberalised trade and liberalised investment, or whether they want to retreat to a more protectionist policy approach. And I think history shows that protectionism generally does not work.
Which brings me to ask you, what is the kind of impact on Australia? And Australia is a country which has its deepest strategic links with America, but deepest trade links right now with China. So how do you see the impact on a country like Australia?
Australia has for many decades pursued a policy by governments of all persuasions to have free trade, or certainly liberalised trade and liberalised investment. The fact is that the last 70 years, 80 years of policy orthodoxy has shown to the world the benefits that flow from liberalised trade investment. When we have a more protectionist environment, it makes it more difficult. Now, thankfully, Australia's government and the opposition are united in their approach to say, no, we want to maintain liberalised trade investment and are not retreating to a protectionist environment, because they know that protectionism would actually lead to a lower standard of living for all Australians in the future.
And how important is the 90-day pause or the window that exists right now for all countries apart from China, where right now we just have the 10% base tariff that has been imposed? How crucial do you think this is to be able to finalize some sort of trade deals?
It's very clear that the Trump administration is wanting to do deals. I think every country has an opportunity now to speak with the US administration with a view to saying, you know, how do we move forward from this? President Trump has made it clear repeatedly that he is looking for reciprocity in terms of US markets, access to markets, and US trade relationships. So fundamentally, I think countries that are feeling a more punitive tariff need to make sure that they are allowing US products, US goods to have access to their markets in a way that doesn't disenfranchise or disadvantage the US. But then there's also the other side of the equation, which is, for example, Australia, where Australia has a free trade agreement with the United States. There are no tariffs imposed on US goods coming into Australia. So there's no justification for the 10% that is being imposed by the United States on Australia. But ultimately, it comes down to governments being able to have those conversations with the US administration and move past where things are now to a better future.
Right. Given the fact that Trump administration views diplomatic ties through the prism of its trade relationships, through the prism of the trade balances and the trade deficits it runs, is this the new normal for diplomacy going forward?
You cannot separate an economic relationship from a political relationship. Of course, countries are focused on what they can do economically, and that spills over in terms of what they can do politically, and vice versa. If countries can't find alignment politically, then it's very difficult to find those opportunities, that low-hanging fruit, to be able to conclude deals economically. So those two go together hand in hand. It's very important, though, that we continue to build as much as we possibly can. Liberalised trade investment throughout the world, because we know that for all countries, there are benefits that flow in terms of increased efficiency around the allocation of capital, increased opportunity for employment, increased opportunity for sales. All of these things ultimately make all countries richer.
Right. And Stephen, given the fact that the next couple of weeks we will see a lot of these countries coming out with their bilateral trade pacts with America to cut down the tariff impact, is this now going to be the future of global trade? No WTO, no multilateral trade, more of these bilateral trade pacts where people try to insulate the impact of Trump tariffs?
The World Trade Organization is going to continue to have a number of challenges in front of it. It, of course, had to grapple with the fact that for quite a number of years, there were not appointments made to the appellate body, which made the work of the WTO more challenging. The fundamental test for the WTO is, can it change? Can it amend itself? Can it revive itself to make sure that it continues to be an important body into the future? The world is looking for more stewardship than ever when it comes to navigating the tricky waters that we have around trade investment. That's a key role the WTO can play. The question is how the WTO is best able to leverage its relationships and leverage its voice to maximize the arguments about why we need to be engaging in more trade, not less.
All right, Stephen Siabo, former Trade Minister of Australia, decoding the impact that Trump tariffs have had on the world and on Australia. Thank you so much for speaking to NDTV.
Moving on to some breaking updates from J&K. J&K government shuts more than half of tourist sites. That's a breaking update in the aftermath of the horrific attack in Pahalgam. More than half of the tourist sites have been shut in J&K.
That's right. The government of J&K has shut down these sites over security concerns, including 48 resorts that have been shut down. So this is a move that has been taken in regard to, of course, this comes in the backdrop of the attack on the tourists in Pahalgam. The J&K, do remember, the Forest Department had also decided to close all its trekking destination. Nazir joining us with the breaking news. Nazir, take us through the latest of this move that's been taken by the government.
Well, based on the security assessment, the government has shut around 48 tourist resorts and destinations across Kashmir. There are near 90 or 87 tourist resorts in the destinations in Kashmir, and 48 have been shut. It is seen as a part of preventive measure to ensure that security forces are not stretched out there, because given the way we have seen things played out here in Pahalgam, just a week ago, 26 tourists were killed in Pahalgam's Baisaran Meadow, which is just 5 kilometers from here, from Pahalgam town. So perhaps one advisory could have saved this whole, prevented the incident or avoided this massacre, because security force already had intelligence that terrorists may be attacking some hotel, which means attacking tourists. But somehow there was no advisory that time asking people not to go to isolated places. But now there's 48 resorts and destinations have been closed for tourists, which includes Yusmarg, which includes Dodpatri, which is in Badgam, Bangas Valley in Kupara, Chandigam, Kupara Valley, even the garden, these Varina gardens as well, and Akkad Park, and so many places across Kashmir. So at a time when we say that people have spoken in unequivocal terms, clearly condemning terrorism, and they are saying this should be the last thing, the last incident in the valley. Yesterday we saw in the assembly how every member from all the parties has spoken one voice against terrorism. What I know is, last week Chief Minister Umar Abdullah held a meeting with the stakeholders, and he was informed there that some of the stakeholders said some of the destinations have been shut that time, only a few were shut, or soon after this incident. Then he was informed by the Director of Tourism and the police, look, it is very temporary. But now what we are hearing that 48 destinations, which is more than the half of total number of tourist destinations across Kashmir, which have been shut because as a preventive measure after Pahalgam terror attack.
Right, Nazir, and as you've been pointing out over the last few days, you've spoken about how people are standing in unity. There is a rare unity that you're seeing in all parts of Kashmir, irrespective of what people's backgrounds are. People from all over really uniting as far as the terror, as far as the fight against terrorism is concerned. So, but what is the kind of loss of livelihood now that we're breaking the story about how several of these tourist spaces will be shut across J&K? What is the kind of loss of livelihood that you're seeing? What is the kind of response to this closure? And what is the expectation of the locals as far as the revival of many of these places are concerned?
Well, it may take a long time to revive these places. Right now, the news is they have been closed. It means terrorists have not just, killed 26 innocent people, massacred them. They have killed the livelihood of the people of Kashmir as well. Many people had invested heavily. They had taken loans, built infrastructure in places which were not known as tourist destinations, made them beautiful places. But the fact is now, because of this terror attack, as a preventive measure, all these things have been, shut. Let me show you the Pahalgam town here. Just a week ago, it was a bustling marketplace, full of tourists, and police had a tough time to regulate traffic. But now this is the condition of Pahalgam town. Though tourists have come in much reduced number, they are returning in much reduced number, but it is too little in comparison to what it used to be a week ago. So this is the kind of impact this terrorist attack, this massacre has, which is clearly on expected lines. You can't have and what is bigger worry, while the people have spoken loudly, they have come out strongly against terrorism, violence and this massacre. What people are waiting for is when will security or central government deliver when it comes to the tracking down the attackers. A massive operation is underway in these forests in Pahalgam over for last 1 week. But so far there's no indication if terrorists their security forces are anywhere close to tracking down these terrorists. We have been reporting for last 3-4 years since these Pakistan-backed these terrorists, they entered Jammu and Kashmir. They appear to be well-trained, particularly in the jungle warfare. We have seen kind of attacks they have carried out on the security force, particularly army, in Jammu region from Kutwa to Poonch, Rajouri and Kishtwar. Now we see same bunch of these terrorists who have appeared in these forests. One of them is said to be linked to SSG group of Pakistani commandos, who was part of that horrible massacre of innocent people. So when you have these hardened, dreaded terrorists, they are operating in these jungles, it is a huge challenge for the security forces, not just to track them down to give some justice to the victim families, but also ensure this place is free from militancy, free from shadow of terror, because Amarnath Yatra is just less than 2 months away, and Pahalgam is the base camp of Amarnath Yatra. So it is a huge challenge for the security forces to ensure that this place remains terror-free. But as part of the precautionary measures, this is something they have done. Close tourist destinations or the sites and some of the resorts as well, where they fear they could be vulnerable to some incidents. That's why they have been closed. People on their side have spoken loudly. They have made it clear that terrorism is unacceptable. They have made it clear that killing innocent people, particularly tourists, is completely unacceptable. We have seen the sentiment which was on the streets, reflected in the assembly yesterday, how leaders across party lines, they actually spoke in non-partisan way from BJP, PDP, People's Conference, CPIM, and then a very emotional and strong speech by Chief Minister Umar Abdullah. He named everyone